talk further about the animation of the head and face. What you have here is a mesh contributed by Nick's Human Male Average, which comes bundled with ZBrush. I've simply taken the head off, as oftentimes we do in the game industry, to make sure that we're cutting down the vertex animation, the amount of that, because it is costly. You can see that I also have several morph targets, blend shapes, for vertex animation set up here as examples. And again, you can preview the previous video tutorial in this series to get a walkthrough about how that is created and established. Here we're going to talk about animating with the blend shapes and the bone system with additional rigging for the eyes. You can see that this is an extension of the rig for the body. I typically use Maya's Human IK for animating the body, and you'll have a nub between the ears, which is the axis point for the skull. You can build on the additional rigging onto that end effect of the nub. What I do usually is go ahead and give myself a small bone at the top of the nub, and it's looking directly out toward the eyes. I've got two arms that come out. This is just my best practice to get those aligned perfectly with the eye and the eyesight, so that this end joint will be used for parenting the eye mesh to that. When I do that, I go ahead and set up the eye rig. This is just a custom handle created with curves, 2 circles and an oval curve. So I can go ahead and grab that and animate the position of the eyes. Hopefully you can see. Go ahead and select the eyes so that you can see those a little bit easier as they rotate. That's not going to help. Alright, so as we see the pupils of the eyes, hopefully, maybe easier to see here. Alright. I also have my blend shapes created and configured, added those through the Windows animation editors and shape editor. You can see that I have all 5 loaded and then my target head is created or added last. Select that last. So just quick preview, I select all of my heads, preserving the offset of my heads and also the UV and vertex positions. Then you can go ahead and select all of your heads with the base mesh last. Come into this shape editor window and simply hit this button, create blend shape, and it'll load these for you. You can see that the red is indicating that I currently have keys set on those particular heads. And so let's take a look at the animation and how the animation is created. I'm going to go ahead and select on my head. In the channel box, if you open up the input for blend shapes, you can see that they're loaded here. You can key them here as well. So I've got the head. Let's back up just a little bit so you can see the action on that. Just go ahead and hide the rigging. Actually, that's hiding the eyes too. Alright, so what I have here is a head turn. Now, traditional animation, oftentimes you will do a simple head turn, and all that goes into that head turn as one of your first animations. So I have brought that information to the digital community, and by doing the head turn, it is a good ball bounce, if you will, to actually understanding what it takes to actually do simple movement for the head and adding expression and lip sync. This is not beginner work, however, with the step-by-step tutorials that will be provided, a beginner will be able to step through the process of setup and animating them. Alright, so what we have, we're not going to be able to see the keys in the time slider, which is typical if you are animating, unless you select the actual blend shape. Alright, so what I'm going to do first is simply play through the animation here so that you can see the simple head turn. It turns again, lip sync is in play, the eye rig is in play, and so what you should detect is the anticipation of movement, the slow in of the movement, the arc of motion, the slow out, the push at the end of the movement, and then the settle in back into the position. Now that's just for one of the moves. So as you can see, there's quite a lot that goes into that. Let's go ahead and play through. Head goes down, head comes up, it's a little expression, look alive motion, get a little lip sync. There's some that it's tearing here as an example of the difference between using the jaw bone only and not employing the morph targets. So we'll talk through this slowly now so that you can see all that it takes to put this together. Excuse me. I'm going to select the bone first so that you can see the animation keyframes in the time slider for the bone movement only. Now as we begin, face forward, we're going to go ahead and come down into the movement, and there's a slight push going a little bit beyond that movement and then coming back to the same position. It's a very slight push, and just to settle in and keep that motion natural. Then you've got the bone and the eye blink. Let's go ahead and take a different angle on that. You got some morph target and some bone testing coming into play here. Notice the blink before the head turns. This is very important for all action, including body. Your eyes will lead the action. Oftentimes the eyes will blink first and then it will lead the action. Notice the blink. The eyes have turned already. As you're coming out of that, the head will follow the eyes all the way up into the new pose and then settling in. Alright, notice the look alive settle in. You're coming past that key pose on frame 60 and then you're settling back in. Additionally, what you're seeing is some blend shape action in the brow. You're seeing the blinking also as partial look alive animation. So it's about keeping your character looking like they're alive. Now you'll also see some testing here in the jawbone. All of this, you can see there's no keys set on the jawbone through this particular range. So it's all testing with the mouth positions of the blend shapes only. And as you get to the jaw, adding the jaw, you can get more action into that jaw. And then you can smooth out some of the tearing that happens around those peak areas, such as the corner of the mouth. Now I've done something pretty severe, and I'm rotating the jaw in 3 directions, not just one. So I'm really really challenging that mesh. However, if I go back in and weight this just a little differently, that's the skin weights, and then allow that movement to happen in those extreme poses, you notice all of this in here is pulling and tearing. We don't want that in the end result. It's not acceptable. So if we weight this a little differently and also add blend shapes over that to help shape up, to help influence the positioning of your vertices, then that will give you a much more natural look to your particular mouth positions. So with very few morph targets, and that is the purpose of using a partial bone rig in the jaw, very few mouth positions, you can get something that looks very realistic, many mouth positions on a slider bar, as opposed to individual sculpts. So that's the purpose of getting them on your shape editor, so that you can use every position in that slider bar as a potential influencer in that particular pose. Alright, so let's take a look at it again and talk about how this can be further improved. Now notice I'm using my keyframes. I'm keying on my eye rig to direct the position of the eye. So as he anticipates the movement, he's going to blink, go down into that position pretty rapidly. Now I could and will anticipate this movement before we actually go. Take a look at that abrupt start. There's no anticipation involved. What we can do to make that look more natural is, in fact, give him an anticipation, which is a few frames out. You're going to actually move the head slightly in the opposite direction of the arc that he'll follow in the keyframe. And then you're going to go ahead and take that down into the move. Oftentimes I'll put a blink right at that high point of anticipation, and then you can clearly see off the blink that the eyes are leading the action. Notice the eyes have led the action down. Blink. I'm using the blink actually to make the eyes continue to look alive as I add some expression into the forehead as well. I'm rotating and testing the jawbone here from side to side. You don't want to go too far with that. Know your range, otherwise you're going to make it look broken and not give it the attitude or the range of motion that you actually want. So know your extremes. Alright, notice I'm employing the brow also. The brow is coming down as I blink in anticipation of this radical move that's coming out. His eyes are leading. Again, coming up. There's a slight cush, and then settle into that extreme pose. All the while making sure that the face is alive and the expression is there. Now, I'm testing the lip syncing so that I could show you the difference in here. That's why the expression is dead. I haven't put any keyframes, no expression in there. Notice the difference between the expression and the eyes and the brow and all the look alive motion here, and then he just flatlines. Very important to keep that face looking alive with motion. Even the subtlest of movement, subtlest of keyframes on the brow and the eyes will make all the difference in if your character looks alive or if he looks robotic. Alright, in the next series, I hope you can join me where we step through the setup and the animation in step-by-step tutorials for those who are beginning and need that additional support. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you the next time.